The evening sky was painted in hues of orange and purple as Alex finished stacking firewood outside his small cabin in the woods. Life had always been quiet for him, perhaps too quiet. He had moved out here years ago to escape the chaos of the city, finding solace in the simplicity of nature. But tonight, something felt off. The air was unusually still, and the woods, typically alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, seemed eerily silent. Alex brushed the thought aside and stepped into his cabin, the warm glow of a single lamp casting shadows across the wooden walls. He had just settled into his chair with a book when a sudden knock at the door startled him. He wasn't expecting visitors, especially not out here where his nearest neighbor lived miles away. Who could it be at this hour? He muttered, setting the book aside. Opening the door cautiously, Alex froze. Standing before him was a young woman, her pale blue skin shimmering faintly under the fading light. Her white hair fell softly around her delicate face, and her eyes, large and luminous, seemed to hold an otherworldly depth. She wore a fitted metallic-like outfit that looked more like armor than clothing. "I need your help," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Alex blinked, convinced he was dreaming. Who are you?" he stammered. "My name is Zara," she replied, her tone firm but kind. "I've come to protect you." Alex let out a nervous laugh. "Protect me? From what? And why are you?" He gestured vaguely at her appearance, unsure how to finish the question. Zara stepped closer, her gaze steady. "There's no time to explain everything. But you're in danger, Alex. They're coming for you." "Who's coming for me?" he demanded, his voice rising. "And how do you know my name?" She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder as if expecting someone, or something, to appear from the shadows. "Please, let me in. I promise I'll explain. But first, you need to trust me." Alex's instincts screamed at him to shut the door and lock it, but there was something in her eyes, a mix of urgency and sincerity, that made him pause. Against his better judgment, he stepped aside and gestured for her to enter. Inside, Zara scanned the room, her movements precise and alert. "This place is defensible," she muttered, more to herself than to him. Alex crossed his arms, trying to assert some control over the situation. "Look, I don't know who you are or what kind of danger you're talking about, but you can't just show up here and—" Before he could finish, a faint hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. Zara's expression darkened. "They're here," she said, her voice low. "Who's here?" Alex asked, panic creeping into his tone. Zara turned to him, her calm demeanor replaced with urgency. "Listen to me carefully. Stay behind me, and whatever happens, do not step outside." Alex opened his mouth to argue, but the look on her face stopped him. It wasn't just fear, it was determination, the kind that came from someone who had faced danger before and survived. The hum grew into a deafening roar, and the ground beneath them trembled. Zara moved to the door, drawing a sleek, glowing weapon from her side. "This is just the beginning," she said, glancing back at Alex. "But I won't let them take you." As the first shadowy figure appeared at the edge of the woods, Alex realized two things. Zara wasn't human, and whatever danger she spoke of was very real. For the first time in years, Alex's quiet life was about to be anything but. The air outside the cabin crackled with tension as the shadowy figure moved closer. Alex stood frozen near the table, his heart pounding in his chest. Zara, however, didn't flinch. She held her weapon steady, her eyes locked on the intruder. "Stay back," she whispered sharply, not turning to face Alex. He didn't need to be told twice. His instincts screamed at him to hide, but his curiosity rooted him in place. Through the faint light from the lamp, Alex saw the figure step into view. It was tall and humanoid, but its features were obscured by a dark, shimmering suit. A faint, unnatural glow outlined its form, and its movements were unnervingly fluid. What is that?" Alex managed to croak. Not human, Zara replied, her voice low but firm. And definitely not friendly. The creature tilted its head, as if studying the cabin. Then, in a burst of speed, it lunged toward the door. Zara reacted instantly, firing her weapon. A beam of energy shot out, striking the creature mid-leap. It let out a sharp, guttural sound before collapsing to the ground. Alex stumbled backward, his breath ragged. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Who are you, and why are they coming after me?" Zara turned to him, her expression unreadable. "I told you, I'm here to protect you. And these things, they're here because of who you are." Alex stared at her, shaking his head. "Who I am? I'm just a guy who chops wood and reads books. You've got the wrong person." Zara's gaze softened slightly, but her voice remained steady. "You're more important than you realize, Alex, and whether you know it or not, they're not going to stop until they get to you." Before Alex could respond, another sound reached their ears, a low rumble, accompanied by the faint rustling of leaves. Zara moved quickly, peering out the window. "There's more of them," she muttered, her grip tightening on her weapon. Alex felt his knees go weak. "More? How many?" "Too many," Zara admitted. She turned to him, her expression hardening. "We can't stay here. They'll surround the cabin and overwhelm us." Alex's mind raced. This was his home, his safe haven, and now he was being forced to abandon it because of some cosmic conspiracy he didn't understand. But as he looked at Zara, calm and collected despite the chaos, he realized arguing wouldn't help. "Fine," he said, his voice shaky. "But where do we go?" Zara pulled a small metallic device from her belt. It lit up with a soft, pulsating light, and she studied it for a moment. "There's a safe point a few miles from here. We can make it if we move quickly." Alex grabbed his coat and a flashlight, his hands trembling. "Safe point? What is this, some kind of alien video game?" "Focus," Zara snapped, though there was a hint of a smile on her lips. "Stay close to me, and whatever happens, don't fall behind." They stepped outside into the cool night air, the forest now cloaked in darkness. Alex's senses were on high alert, every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig making him flinch. Zara led the way, her weapon at the ready, her every movement precise and deliberate. As they moved deeper into the woods, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He glanced over his shoulder, half expecting another of those creatures to appear. Zara must have noticed his unease. "They won't attack yet," she said quietly. "Not until they're certain they can win." "That's supposed to make me feel better," Alex muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Zara didn't answer. Instead, she stopped abruptly, holding up a hand to signal silence. Alex froze, straining his ears. And then he heard it, a low, guttural growl, closer than he'd expected. "They're here," Zara whispered. "Stay behind me." Alex's heart raced as Zara raised her weapon, the glow of its energy casting eerie shadows on the trees. Whatever was out there, it was closing in fast. And for the first time, Alex realized he wasn't just running from danger. He was running toward a truth that could change everything. The growl grew louder, sending a shiver down Alex's spine. He gripped the flashlight tighter, his knuckles turning white. Zara stood her ground, her weapon humming softly as she adjusted her stance. The faint light of the moon cast long shadows across the forest floor, turning every tree into a menacing figure. "Stay close," Zara said, her voice steady but urgent. "They'll try to separate us." "Separate us?" Alex whispered, his heart hammering in his chest. "I didn't sign up for this." "You didn't have a choice," Zara replied, her eyes scanning the darkness. "Now move." They began to walk quickly through the dense forest, the underbrush crunching under their feet. Alex's breathing was loud in his ears, but he forced himself to focus. He didn't know what was coming, but the look in Zora's eyes told him it wasn't something he wanted to meet. Suddenly, a shadow darted across their path. Alex froze, his flashlight trembling in his hand. "What was that?" he hissed. Zara didn't answer. She raised her weapon, aiming it at the trees ahead. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint rustling of leaves. Then, with a burst of speed, a creature lunged out of the shadows, its gleaming claws outstretched. Zara fired without hesitation. A beam of energy struck the creature midair, sending it crashing to the ground. It writhed for a moment before going still, its body dissolving into a faint mist. "Keep moving," Zara barked, grabbing Alex's arm and pulling him forward. They ran, weaving through the trees as more growls echoed around them. Alex's lungs burned, and his legs ached, but fear kept him going. Every time he glanced back, he caught glimpses of movement, dark shapes slipping through the shadows, always just out of reach. "What are these things?" Alex shouted between breaths. "Hunters," Zara replied, her tone grim. "They're trackers sent to capture or kill. And they're very good at their job." "Great," Alex muttered, stumbling over a root. "Any more bad news you want to share?" Zara glanced at him briefly, a flicker of amusement in her eyes despite the danger. "They don't give up." "Fantastic." The trees began to thin, and Zara slowed, raising her hand to signal Alex to stop. Ahead, a faint light glimmered through the branches. Zara crouched low, motioning for Alex to do the same. "That's the safe point," she whispered. "We just need to make it there." Alex nodded, though he wasn't sure how much more running he could handle. As they crept closer, the light grew brighter, revealing a metallic structure hidden among the trees. It was sleek and futuristic, with panels that pulsed softly, casting an otherworldly glow. Zara reached into her belt and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and the structure emitted a low hum before a door slid open. "Inside now," she ordered. Alex didn't need to be told twice. He bolted for the door, his heart pounding as he crossed the threshold. Zara followed, slamming her hand against a panel to seal the door shut. The hum intensified, and the walls shimmered faintly, as though the structure was coming alive. "What is this place?" Alex asked, leaning against the wall to catch his breath. "A temporary shelter," Zara replied, her voice calm now. "It's cloaked from their sensors, but it won't hold forever." Alex sank to the floor, his legs trembling. "This is insane," he said, shaking his head. "Why me? Why are they after me?" Zara knelt in front of him, her expression softening. "Because you're important, Alex, more important than you realize." Alex stared at her, searching her face for answers. "Important how?" Zara hesitated, then said, "You're connected to something bigger, something that could change the fate of this entire galaxy." Alex opened his mouth to speak, but before he could ask another question, the walls trembled, and a deep, resonating growl echoed outside. "They found us," Zara said, standing up and readying her weapon. "Get ready." The metallic walls of the shelter trembled again, the low growl reverberating through the confined space. Alex's pulse quickened as he stared at Zara, who stood poised with her weapon. She looked calm, but her sharp gaze darted toward every corner of the room, searching for vulnerabilities. "They're here, aren't they?" Alex asked, his voice shaky. Zara nodded without looking at him. "They found the shelter's location, but they can't breach it yet. This will buy us some time." Alex stood, still catching his breath. His thoughts were racing. None of this made sense. Why was he suddenly the target of alien creatures, and why did Zara seem to know everything about it? "I think I deserve some answers," Alex said, trying to steady his voice. "What is really going on? And don't just tell me I'm important. I want the truth." Zara hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, she didn't answer, as if weighing whether she could trust him. Finally, she sighed and lowered her weapon slightly. "Fine," she said. You need to know the truth if we're going to survive this. Alex folded his arms, bracing himself. You're a beacon, Zora began. Your existence signals something significant across the galaxy, a rare natural connection to a powerful ancient energy that my people have been trying to protect for generations. Most beacons never activate in their lifetimes, but when they do, they draw attention. Not just from allies, but from enemies who want to control or destroy that power. Alex blinked. You're saying I'm some kind of galactic lighthouse. More like a key, Zora clarified. A key that could unlock unimaginable potential or devastating destruction. He let out a shaky laugh. That's insane. I'm just a guy who chops wood and reads books. I'm nobody special. Zora stepped closer, her eyes searching his. You're more special than you think, Alex. Whether you like it or not, you're part of something far bigger. And now that your signal has been activated, the hunters won't stop until they have you. Alex's legs felt weak, and he sank back onto the floor. This has to be a mistake, he muttered. I didn't ask for this. I know, Zora said softly, her voice losing its edge for the first time. But it's the truth. And right now, the only thing that matters is keeping you alive. Another tremor shook the shelter, snapping Alex out of his thoughts. What about you? He asked suddenly. Why are you involved in all this? Why do you care what happens to me? Zara hesitated again, her expression unreadable. Because it's my mission, she said finally. I was sent here to protect you. My people believe in the power you hold, and they know that if it falls into the wrong hands, it could mean the end of everything. Alex frowned, a hint of suspicion creeping into his voice. And that's all this is. A mission. Zora opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, a loud thud echoed from outside the shelter. The walls shimmered faintly, their protective barrier visibly straining against the impact. They're testing the defenses, Zora said, her tone sharp again. We don't have much time. What happens when they break through? Alex asked, fear tightening his chest. Zora's expression hardened. We fight. Alex stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. He wasn't a fighter. He had no idea how to defend himself against creatures from another world. But as he looked at Zora, her resolve, her determination, something shifted within him. If we're going to fight, he said, forcing his voice to steady, then you'd better teach me how. Zora gave him a small, approving nod. Good. We'll start now. She handed him a smaller version of her weapon, its sleek design humming faintly in his hands. This is an energy blade, she explained. It's simple to use, but you'll need to act fast and stay focused. Alex nodded, gripping the weapon tightly. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, a spark of determination. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going down without a fight. As another deafening thud shook the shelter, Zora turned to face him. Stay close to me. We're getting out of here alive. And with that, the battle for survival truly began. The shelter trembled violently as another impact rocked its walls. Alex gripped the energy blade tightly, its cool hum a sharp reminder of the danger closing in. Zora moved with calm efficiency, adjusting settings on her weapon and checking the readings on her device. They're testing the barrier, Zora said, her tone steady but urgent. It won't hold much longer. When it goes down, they'll swarm us. Alex's stomach twisted at her words. Can't this place hold them off? I mean, it's alien tech, right? Zara shook her head. It's advanced, but not invincible. The hunters know how to dismantle these systems. They're relentless, and they've had practice. A sharp crack split the air, and the shimmering light along the walls flickered. Alex took a step back, his heart pounding. What happens if the barrier fails before we're ready? Zara gave him a quick, determined glance. Then we fight. And we win. Alex swallowed hard, nodding. He wasn't sure how he'd contribute, but he knew one thing. He wasn't about to let Zara face this alone. "What's the plan?" he asked, trying to sound braver than he felt. Zara gestured to a panel on the wall. "There's an exit tunnel beneath the shelter. It leads to a transport vehicle hidden a mile away. We'll use that to get to the next safe point." "And the hunters?" Alex asked, his voice tight. "They'll follow," Zara admitted, "but we'll deal with them one step at a time." Before Alex could respond, the lights in the shelter dimmed, and the walls emitted a low, ominous hum. Zara's expression darkened. "The barrier's failing. Get ready." Alex felt a surge of panic, but he forced himself to focus. He held the energy blade in front of him, trying to remember Zora's quick instructions. Point, activate, and swing. It sounded simple enough, but he had a sinking feeling it wouldn't be. The wall to their left buckled, a section of it collapsing inward with a deafening crash. Dust and debris filled the air as a hunter stepped through, its glowing eyes scanning the room. It let out a guttural growl, raising its sharp, clawed hands. Zara didn't wait. She fired a precise energy shot, striking the creature square in the chest. It stumbled but didn't fall, its resilience chillingly evident. "Move," Zara shouted, pulling Alex toward the tunnel entrance. Another hunter burst through the wall, its sleek form darting toward them. Alex swung his blade instinctively, the weapon's energy slicing through the air. He missed by inches, stumbling backward. Zara turned, firing at the second hunter with precision. "Focus, Alex," she barked. "You can do this." The first hunter lunged again, its claws swiping dangerously close to Alex. He swung the blade again, this time connecting with its arm. The creature screeched, recoiling as sparks erupted from its wound. "I got it," Alex shouted, equal parts shocked and exhilarated. "Don't celebrate yet," Zara called back, firing at a third hunter entering the shelter. She shoved Alex toward the tunnel panel, hitting a button that opened a hatch in the floor. "Get in, now." Alex climbed down quickly, his pulse racing. Zara followed, sealing the hatch behind them. The tunnel was dark and narrow, the air thick with tension. Zara activated a light on her weapon, illuminating the path ahead. "Keep moving," she said, her voice firm. "They'll come after us, but this will slow them down." Alex nodded, his mind racing with questions he didn't have time to ask. His body was trembling, the adrenaline from his first real fight coursing through him. "How far to the transport?" he asked, his voice shaky. "Not far," Zora replied, glancing back briefly. "But we need to move fast. They'll adapt, and when they do, they'll hit us harder." The weight of her words sank in as they hurried through the tunnel. Alex's fear hadn't disappeared, but something else had taken its place. Determination. He didn't fully understand what he was fighting for, but he knew one thing: he wasn't going to let the hunters win. As they neared the end of the tunnel, Alex caught a glimpse of faint light ahead. Zara raised her weapon, signaling him to stay quiet. Whatever awaited them on the surface, Alex knew they would face it together. The tunnel exit opened into a clearing surrounded by towering trees. The faint glow of the transport vehicle flickered in the distance, its sleek frame blending into the forest shadows. Zara scanned the area, her weapon at the ready. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Stay low and keep moving." Alex nodded, gripping the energy blade tightly. His legs were sore from the constant running, but he pushed through the exhaustion. The adrenaline coursing through his veins kept him moving, though his mind reeled from everything that had happened. As they crept toward the transport, a sharp screech echoed through the forest. Alex froze, his heart pounding. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Zara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the treetops. "They're here," she said grimly. "Hunters don't give up easily." Before Alex could respond, a shadowy figure darted between the trees ahead. Zara raised her weapon, firing a precise shot. The beam struck the figure, which let out a guttural roar before collapsing into the underbrush. "Move," Zara ordered, pulling Alex forward. They broke into a run, the transport vehicle now just a few yards away. The screeches grew louder, and Alex realized with horror that more hunters were closing in. As they reached the transport, Zara slammed her hand onto a panel near the door. It slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a compact but advanced interior. "Get in," she barked. Alex scrambled inside, collapsing onto one of the seats. Zara followed, sealing the door behind them. She moved quickly to the controls, her fingers dancing over the interface. "Can this thing outrun them?" Alex asked, his voice shaky. "It's fast," Zara replied, her tone clipped. "But so are they. Hold on." The vehicle hummed to life, and Alex felt it lift slightly off the ground. Zara steered it through the forest, the craft weaving effortlessly between the trees. The hunter's screeches grew distant, but Alex's relief was short-lived. A loud thud shook the vehicle as something landed on top of it. "They're on us," Alex shouted. Zara didn't look back. "Keep them off," she said, tossing him a small device. "Use this." Alex fumbled with the device, his hands trembling. It was cylindrical, with a glowing tip that pulsed faintly. "What do I do with this?" "Press the button and aim," Zara said. "It'll take care of the rest." Alex nodded, crawling toward a hatch in the ceiling. He pushed it open cautiously, the night air rushing in. Peering out, he saw one of the hunters clinging to the top of the vehicle, its claws scraping against the metal. Taking a deep breath, Alex pressed the button on the device. A beam of energy shot out, striking the hunter. The creature let out a piercing shriek before disintegrating into a cloud of ash. Alex barely had time to catch his breath before another hunter leaped onto the vehicle. "Another one," Alex shouted, aiming the device again. This time, the beam hit the creature's leg, causing it to lose its grip and tumble off the vehicle. Zara glanced at him briefly. "Good shot," she said, "but don't let your guard down." Alex nodded, his pulse racing. The transport sped through the forest, the trees becoming a blur. The screeches of the hunters faded, and for the first time, Alex allowed himself to hope that they might actually escape. But Zara's tense expression told a different story. "This isn't over," she said, her voice low. "They'll regroup and come after us again. We need to reach the next safe point before they do." Alex sat back, his mind racing. He had survived his first real fight, but the danger was far from over. As the transport soared into the night, Alex realized he was no longer the same man who had lived a quiet, isolated life in the woods. He was now part of something far bigger and far more dangerous. For better or worse, his life had changed forever. The transport soared through the dark forest, its engines humming with a steady rhythm. Alex sat quietly, gripping the edge of his seat. The adrenaline from the fight had worn off, leaving behind a mix of exhaustion and unease. Zara, seated at the controls, remained focused, her sharp gaze scanning the interface. "Where are we going now?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. "To a hidden sanctuary," Zara replied without looking at him. "It's fortified and equipped with resources we need. If we're lucky, it'll give us enough time to regroup." "Lucky," Alex muttered, shaking his head. "That's not a word I'd use to describe tonight." Zara allowed a faint smile to touch her lips but didn't respond. For a few moments, the only sounds were the soft hum of the transport and the occasional rustle of wind outside. Alex stared out the window, the dense trees giving way to open plains illuminated by a faint moonlight. "You still haven't told me everything," Alex said, his voice quieter now. "Why me? Out of all the people in the world, why did you show up at my door?" Zara hesitated, her fingers pausing over the controls. Finally, she sighed and leaned back slightly, her expression softening. "You deserve the truth," she said. "All of it." Alex turned to face her, his curiosity mixed with apprehension. "You're not just a random beacon," Zara began. "Your signal was dormant for years, hidden from even the most advanced sensors. That's why you were able to live your life in peace. But something changed recently. Something powerful enough to awaken your connection to the ancient energy. What kind of something? Alex asked, his brow furrowing. A surge in galactic conflict, Zara explained. Factions across the galaxy are fighting over resources, territory, and power. Your activation wasn't a coincidence. It was a response to the chaos. Beacons like you are rare, and when one awakens, it can shift the balance of power. Alex stared at her, struggling to process her words. So, you're saying I'm some kind of cosmic trump card? In a way, Zara said, nodding. You have the potential to influence the outcome of this conflict. That's why the hunters are after you. They work for a faction that wants to harness your energy for destruction. And your people? Alex asked, his tone skeptical. What do they want from me? Zara hesitated again, her expression unreadable. At first, my mission was simple. Find you, protect you, and bring you to our safe zone. But after spending time with you, I realized something important. Alex tilted his head. What? You're not just a tool to be used, Zara said softly. You're a person, a human being with a life and choices. My people don't fully understand that, but I do now. That's why I've been trying to keep you safe, even if it means defying orders. Alex was stunned into silence. He had been suspicious of Zara's intentions from the start, but her words carried a sincerity he couldn't ignore. For the first time, he felt a flicker of trust toward her. Before he could respond, a sharp alarm blared through the transport. Zara's expression hardened instantly as she scanned the controls. They'd found us again, she said, her voice tense. Alex's stomach dropped. Already? I thought we lost them. They're faster than I expected, Zara said, gripping the controls. Hang on. The transport veered sharply as Zara pushed it to its limits. Outside, faint flashes of light appeared in the distance, signals of the hunters closing in. Alex clenched his fists, his earlier calm replaced by a growing sense of dread. What's the plan now? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Zara glanced at him, her determination unwavering. We fight if we have to. But no matter what happens, I won't let them take you. Her words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken resolve. As the hunters closed the gap, Alex braced himself for another battle, realizing that Zara wasn't just protecting him. She was risking everything for him. And for the first time, Alex felt something stir deep within him. He wasn't just running anymore. He was ready to stand and fight. The transport trembled as Zara pushed it to its limits, weaving through the open plains at breakneck speed. Outside, faint lights pierced the darkness. Hunters closing in, their sleek crafts glowing faintly in the moonlight. Alex gripped the edge of his seat, his knuckles white. They're gaining on us, Alex shouted, his voice barely audible over the alarm blaring inside the cabin. Zara didn't reply, her focus entirely on the controls. Her hands moved swiftly, adjusting the transport's speed and course. I can hold them off for now, she said, her tone calm but laced with urgency. But we'll need to make a stand soon. Their crafts are faster. Alex's stomach churned. The idea of fighting the hunters again made his hands tremble, but he knew running wasn't an option. What do you need me to do? He asked, forcing his voice to steady. Zara glanced at him briefly, a flicker of approval in her eyes. Good. There's a weapons system in the back. It's linked to the transport. You'll need to take control and fire at anything that gets too close. Alex hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I'll try. He scrambled to the back of the transport, where a sleek console awaited him. The controls were simple but alien, and the screen displayed the pursuing crafts in sharp detail. He gripped the joystick and aimed at the nearest hunter. Remember, Zara called from the cockpit, don't hesitate. They won't. Alex swallowed hard and pressed the trigger. A beam of energy shot out, narrowly missing the target. The hunter craft swerved, then surged forward, returning fire. The transport shuddered as the enemy's weapon struck its rear. "I can't do this," Alex shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Yes, you can," Zura replied firmly. "Focus. You've done it before, and you can do it again." Alex took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He aimed again, this time steadying his hands. The beam struck the hunter craft directly, sending it spiraling into the ground. A rush of exhilaration surged through him, but it was short-lived. More crafts appeared on the screen, closing in fast. "We're outnumbered," Alex yelled. "Not for long," Zura said, her voice calm but resolute. "I've activated a defensive system. It'll buy us time." The transport's exterior lit up as a series of small drones detached from its sides. They swarmed toward the pursuing crafts, firing precise shots. Alex watched as 2 more hunter crafts were disabled, their glowing wreckage disappearing into the distance. The momentary relief was shattered as a loud explosion rocked the transport. Sparks flew from the console, and the lights flickered. Zara cursed under her breath. "They hit the engine. We're losing power." Alex's chest tightened. "What do we do now?" Zara's expression was grim but determined. "We land and fight. The sanctuary is just over that ridge. If we can hold them off long enough, we'll make it." The transport descended rapidly, skimming the ground before coming to a rough stop. Alex stumbled as the vehicle jolted, but Zara was already moving. She grabbed her weapon and handed Alex his energy blade. "Stay close to me," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We fight together." They stepped out into the open, the cool night air filled with the hum of approaching hunter crafts. The glowing lights of the sanctuary were visible in the distance, tantalizingly close yet impossibly far. Alex tightened his grip on the blade, his heart pounding. The first hunter appeared, charging toward them with inhuman speed. Zara fired, her shot precise and lethal. Alex swung his blade as another hunter lunged at him, the weapon slicing through its chest. The creature fell, its body dissolving into ash. More hunters emerged, their numbers overwhelming. Zara and Alex fought side by side, their movements a blur of determination and desperation. Alex felt fear clawing at him, but he pushed it aside. For every hunter he defeated, another took its place. "We can't hold them forever," Alex shouted, sweat dripping down his face. "We won't have to," Zora replied, firing at 2 more hunters. "The sanctuary's defenses are activating. Just hold on a little longer." As the glowing lights of the sanctuary intensified, a low hum filled the air, followed by a blinding pulse of energy. The remaining hunters were thrown back, their forms disintegrating in the blast. Alex shielded his eyes, his chest heaving with exhaustion. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent. Zora lowered her weapon, her breathing ragged. She turned to Alex, her expression softening. "You did well," she said quietly. Alex sank to his knees, his body trembling. "We made it," he whispered, more to himself than to Zora. Zora placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze steady. "We're not done yet, but you've proven you're stronger than you think, Alex." Together, they rose and walked toward the sanctuary, their resolves stronger than ever. As Alex and Zara approached the sanctuary, its massive gates slid open, revealing an advanced structure shimmering under the faint moonlight. Inside, the air was warmer, calmer, and filled with the soft hum of alien technology. The faint tension in Alex's chest began to ease, though his body still ached from the relentless fight. Zara led him into the central chamber, where holographic displays lit up the room. Strange symbols and diagrams hovered in the air, but Alex's attention was drawn to a glowing orb in the center. It pulsed rhythmically, casting a gentle light that seemed to fill the space with a sense of peace. "What is this place?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "The sanctuary," Zora replied, her tone softer now. "A safe haven built by my people. This org shields us from the hunters and allows us to regroup." Alex stared at the orb, feeling an odd connection to its glow. "Why do I feel different here?" he asked. Zara studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "The orb resonates with the energy inside you. It amplifies your connection to the ancient power, but it also protects you from being overwhelmed by it." Alex nodded, though the explanation only deepened the question swirling in his mind. "So what now? Do we just stay here forever?" Zara shook her head. "No, the hunters will regroup, and their leaders won't stop searching for you. But now you've proven you can fight back. You're not just a beacon anymore, Alex. You're a defender of this power." Alex's brows furrowed. "A defender? I'm not a soldier, Zara. I barely know how to use this blade." "You've learned faster than anyone I've ever seen," Zara said with a small smile. "And you've shown courage that most wouldn't. That's what makes you different. It's why I believe in you." Alex looked away, the weight of her words settling on him. He had spent years avoiding responsibility, living a quiet life in the woods. Now everything had changed. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but deep down, he knew he couldn't go back to the way things were. Before he could respond, the room shifted. The orb's glow intensified, and a voice, soft yet commanding, filled the air. It spoke in a language Alex didn't understand, but Zara's expression turned serious. "What's happening?" Alex asked, alarmed. "The council," Zara said. "They're contacting us." A holographic figure appeared above the orb, a tall, regal being with features similar to Zara's but more imposing. It spoke in the same strange language, its tone measured. Zara responded in kind, her words firm yet respectful. "What's it saying?" Alex asked, feeling out of place. Zara turned to him after a moment. "The council acknowledges your survival and your potential. They believe you're ready to take the next step." "The next step," Alex repeated, his voice tinged with skepticism. "What does that mean?" "To train," Zara explained. "To harness the energy within you and use it to protect not just yourself, but others. If you accept, you'll become a guardian, a protector of balance in the galaxy." Alex stared at her, his mind racing. The idea was overwhelming, almost absurd. He was just an ordinary man, but the memories of the hunters, the battles, and Zara's unwavering belief in him flashed through his mind. "What if I fail?" he asked quietly. "You won't," Zara said, her voice steady, "because you've already shown you're capable. And I'll be with you every step of the way." Alex took a deep breath, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. But as he looked at Zara and the glowing orb, a spark of determination ignited within him. This was his chance to do something meaningful, something bigger than himself. "I'll do it," he said finally, his voice firm. Zara smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Then let's begin." As the orb's light enveloped them, Alex felt a surge of energy coursing through him. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he was ready to face it head-on. Together, he and Zara would stand against whatever came next. And in that moment, Alex realized he wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living for a purpose.